Hey, everybody, I'm the Ranting Monkey, and with me today is Communist in Space. Say hi.
Sup, fags?
And Communist has been running around for a couple of months following me, and if he sees me in a chat or something, he really wants to debate me. So today we're here to have that chat. Do you
Yeah.
even remember what it was I said that originally upset you?
It didn't upset me, I just like whenever you talk about when you talk shit about the DPRK, uh, I get a little bit triggered inside, I guess.
What is it that I say about North Korea that pisses you off?
Um, you make out like their their approach to their defense is like really ridiculous and that they're the aggressors, but I would argue that it's a measured it's a it's not a it's a good response to the United States and the aggression that they've shown to North Korea over the decades. So I think they're justified in their nuclear tests and their large military size.
So you think they're building up their military big now, and it's a measured response to shit that happened in the past? Who's threatening them right now?
Well, Japan, South Korea, and the United States, and
How so?
China now to a degree. Well, they're practicing military drills right on their doorstep, and like if that was to happen on the United States doorstep, if say Mexico started practicing to invade America or Canada did the same, the United States would they wouldn't tolerate that. They would probably invade the country or try and put an end to it. So how why does North Korea have to be harassed like this, but the rules don't apply to the United States? Or
So you so you think it's okay for them to have nukes because of drills off the coast?
well, not just that. They're also they're sanctioning. They're trying to sabotage the North Korean economy, and they're backing up the South to try and like they're backing up the South to try and uh, keep them at bay and that. And like the North, it's not. I don't think they would really be showing this much aggression if they didn't feel like they were threatened by uh, these superpowers. I think they're justified in protecting their sovereignty from imperialism.
Okay. Sorry, I'm having trouble figuring out why now would be the time they need nukes.
Um,
If any of those countries wanted to just roll over them, they could. The only reason we haven't is China. It's not because of not wanting to do it. We have
yeah,
no
but
reason to.
but if North Korea has these nukes, they know that they'll retaliate and nuke South Korea and possibly Japan. So the cost of a war like that would be too great, and that ensures the sovereignty of the country if the United States ever tries to invade and conquer the country.
So it's a bullying tactic.
It's not a bullying tactic. It, it's not a
It's
bullying
exactly
tactic.
a bullying tactic. The way you just described it, if you touch us, we're gonna blow up people that had nothing to fucking do with it.
Well, well, they have to. They if they don't do that, they're always gonna have a risk from Japan and America from invasion.
How long ago was the ceasefire?
About wasn't it about over 50 years ago?
Yeah,
But they're still technically at war, though.
yeah. So in the last 50 years, nobody's gone in there. So why I don't understand why the fuck they need nukes now. Do you support nukes for all countries for this same reason, just in case somebody invades them,
Um, I
or is it
believe.
just for a communist country?
Well, obviously, I'm not going to support like like capitalist or like say fascist countries. I'm not going to advocate for them
Wait,
having
wait, wait,
nukes
wait, wait.
because
Not fascist countries? Are you kidding?
what?
North Korea is not a fascist country?
No, no. Well, not necessarily. No, they're. I would say they're fairly authoritarian, but I wouldn't go as far as calling them fascist.
I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to be rude here, but how the fuck do you get that they're not fascist?
Because fascism is a mixture. It has a capitalism in its system. It's North Korea is anti-capitalist, so they can't. By definition, they're not fascist. You could argue that they're authoritarian or some sort of totalitarian government, but they're not. They're not specifically fascism. Fascism's a very specific ideology. It's not just anyone who has tons of rules.
Um, okay, so I've never heard fascism described as being capitalist specifically. So
Well, it's not.
that's
It's
new to
not.
me.
It's not specifically capitalist. It's a mixture of different elements. Like instead of like the abolition of class, which socialism advocates for, they advocate for socialist. They advocate for class collaboration, where the classes collaborate for society, and also it has it's capitalism with a intense form of nationalism.
I'm sorry. Every definition I know of fascism absolutely applies to North Korea. Um, they are a dictatorial country with severe. Looking at the definition on Merriam-Webster right now, severe economic and social regimentation and forcible suppression of opposition. How is that not Korea?
Well, you can take loads of definitions. There's like every definition from a different website's going to say something different. Uh, from the Marxist definition, from like what most Marxists would say, fascism is it's capitalism, and it's class collaboration, and it's a extreme form of nationalism.
Well, I
I would say that North Korea has like quite an intense nationalism, which Marx opposed, but they don't really have a capitalist economy. They don't have private property, and don't uh, they don't have class collaboration. They probably there is, I guess, a sort of hierarchy, but uh, it could, I would most people are about on the same level, apart from a few military elites.
and the leader, of course.
Yeah. But I mentioned to you that I don't like support the current regime. Support North Korea's uh, right to be a socialist country, and I wouldn't say they're completely social. They're completely socialist because they have like intense nationalism, and they do have some form of class. They have a sort of like class structure in their country still. So there is some aspects to the country that isn't socialist. But I think that's down to the regime that's sort of lot. They've become revisionist. They've abandoned a lot of what Marx
Okay,
had taught.
let's say they've abandoned it, and this is the common refrain of all communists: is that it's never that communism is a shitty system. It's always that, oh, a bad regime got in there. Let's say that's true here. Let's say, for argument's sake, communism is wonderful, and it's just the Kim family that's fucked up. Why would you support nukes for him? Why would you? Why would for Kim Jong Un? Why would you support this crazy motherfucker having
I,
nukes? If by your own
he's
definition he's not even sticking to what you believe
he's
he should be.
he's a traitor to like the uh, to what the Marxist definition of socialism is, but I wouldn't call him crazy. I think, like if he you know he went to one of the like one of the most prestigious schools in the world, and he's if he was like completely nuts, like the country wouldn't be operating properly. Uh, it would have fallen apart. It's a miracle that the country hasn't collapsed already. It's their
Well,
economy.
he doesn't run everything by himself. That would be like saying if something happened to Trump, the whole country would fall apart. They still have economic and social and military leaders.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Even if he is a nutcase, and then he's not got full control of the country. He's got to answer to. He gets a lot of advice from generals and uh, people in his government. But I don't really buy into that he's crazy, because a lot of the myths about North Korea uh, have been debunked in mainstream media outlets have openly admitted that their articles are completely false. Like their outlandish claims, like there was like a unicorn. They claim they found a unicorn, or they claims that like his uncle was ravaged by like 120 dogs. They've all retracted those articles and said that they were false or translations of North Korean articles and that. So
Well,
there's a lot
let's
of propaganda against the
let's talk about
country.
one that we know for a fact. There was an American just returned to us the other day
Yeah.
who had supposedly, with no proof, stolen pictures, stolen posters off of a wall. And he was returned to us brain dead. Their excuse for this was botulism. And that's the North Korean that hasn't been retracted. That hasn't been debunked. What do you say to a story like that? Tell me how great this regime is that some kid stole a poster, and let's say he actually stole the poster. He's returned to us a year later, brain dead. Do you think that was an accident? That what the air over there just got into? What do you think happened in that situation? What's the great North Korean explanation for that?
Well, I'm not sure, because there's not enough information to make judgment yet. But like this isn't any different from what the United States does to its political prisoners, or
how many North Koreans
many
have we
different
returned
countries.
brain dead?
Sorry?
How many North Koreans have we returned brain dead?
Well, you
Oh,
don't know.
sorry. And yeah,
Maybe they're not just
died.
maybe they're not open about it. You don't know. Maybe they have
You don't
been making
think we would have heard about it from North Korean? I mean, you obviously visit communist websites. You talked about the Marxist definition of fascism.
Yeah.
That didn't come from Oxford English. So you've read these things. You don't think that you would have come across something like that?
I don't know enough. I don't know tons about that in particular, but I wouldn't put it past the United States government wouldn't do this in the open, because keep they want to keep an illusion of they're for freedom, they're for democracy, uh they're a fair country. They're not they're not an imperialist warmongering country. They're trying to protect their image. North Korea, I don't condone what they did, but they're just trying to put out that don't fuck with us, leave us alone, stop giving us
The kid
sanctions,
stole a
stop.
poster. If we believe what they said, he stole a poster. How is that don't fuck with us? This is
Yeah,
okay. North Korea is a shitty country. And if you don't believe that, go there. How many times have you been to North Korea?
I'd actually like to visit it at least once in my life. And I'm not
Yeah,
saying that.
I'm going to advise you not to.
Why?
This Otto was not a political prisoner. At
Hmm.
worst, he was a vandal and a thief. And he came back brain dead.
Hmm.
If you go over there, yeah, if you take the work, if you tell them, hey, I'm going to show everybody how great North Korea is, they'll treat you nice. But if you go over there as just a normal person, there's a good chance some horrible shit will happen to you. And this has been documented time and time and time again. This
Well,
isn't just
that
go ahead.
hasn't been a
You're
that
going to tell
isn't
me that the dead kid is propaganda?
that
Please go ahead.
isn't
Tell
being
me that it's
normal though.
propaganda.
That's disrespectful. That could be disrespectful to the country. I would say that the lengths they went to were extreme, but I would still say that.
Extreme. They fucking killed him.
Hmm.
And you
Yeah,
want to give these fuckers nuclear weapons. You want to give them nukes because they killed a kid over a fucking poster and you think they deserve nukes? You think that's a good idea?
what? Yeah, I think it's important to defend their sovereignty. If they were if the country was run by nutcases, it wouldn't be a fucking country. it would it would it would all be it would all be collapsing by now. If it was run
No,
by
the
a
only reason it hasn't collapsed by now is because China has been propping them up for 50 years. And
yeah, but I'm
China's
saying
even China is sick of their shit.
yeah, because China's a capitalist country now, and it's not in their interest to protect North Korea anymore.
So, okay, they get nukes, China completely abandons them. What happens then? Do
Well,
you honestly think the United States is going to invade? Who do you think is invading North Korea?
I think the United States might invade them. Yeah, I think. I think if they have the opportunity where the country shows signs of weakness, like their military starts to degrade, uh, or there's internal conflict within the country, yeah, sure, I think the United States would definitely invade them. But they have that,
Militarily,
but
we
if they
could
have that
take over.
deterrent, if they have that deterrent, then they can protect themselves from this aggression.
Militarily, we could take them over in about a week with no issue. We could do that right now.
Yeah,
So
and if
why
we
haven't we?
because they have nukes, and if they try to invade, we'll destroy their allies. That they'll destroy their allies. So that's so that prevents an invasion from the United States and fucking up their country. What I hope happens in the country is that the current regime is overthrown by a more a more true to Marxist like a proper socialist government starts a coup against the country, and then they can solve their problems by themselves. I don't want the United States going in there, fucking up their country, and uh, turning it into another Iraq.
How do you get people to actually adhere to communism or socialism? How do you get them to the old saying of from each according to their ability to each according to their need? How do you make sure they're giving to their ability?
Um, well, in a socialist society, people there's the myth that everyone is given exactly the same wages, which is not true. Everyone's paid according to their skills and abilities. What what where the everyone gets the same bit is when full communism is achieved, when automation replaces most jobs, and we have an abundance of resources at that point. That's when people can start living equally. But
But
socialism's the
how do you get to
transition.
that point? How do you get to the point where everybody is doing as much as they can? Communism, Here's the problem with communism. Communism relies on the best of people. It relies on them doing the absolute most they can to help out. The true
Hmm.
nature of man is that people are lazy. How do
Yeah.
you make sure that everybody is doing as much as they can?
That's
How do you make
not
sure that
that's not
they're
that's not
actually?
s- that's not what socialism is at all. Um, we believe well, we believe that like automation should be allocated
Yeah, but
to
before you get to
uh,
automation, you have people. How do you get the people to do
yeah,
it?
but we have automation now. We have a degree of automation today, and what I'm saying is, if there was a more socialist government in control, that automation would be allocated so everyone would be getting less work hours, so they can have a better, they can have more leisure time. They can actually enjoy life instead of working 18 hours, in some cases 18 hours a day to put bread on the table. That's that's what I'm advocating for, and that's can be achieved in society
So
if
you're advocating for
automation.
laziness.
No, I'm not advocating for laziness.
That's what you want.
I'm
Well, you just
advocating.
so you don't have to work. You can sit around and just
No,
live off
no, no,
the
no,
automated machines.
no, no,
Who
no.
takes care of the
You're
machines?
straw manning me. Well, that's what I'm
I'm not
saying.
strawmanning
That
you. I'm asking you questions related to this. If you have machines, you're going to have people working on them. Your whole thing is that everything's going to be automated, so nobody has to work. If one, that's not going to
no,
be possible because the machines will
that's
break down.
that's not what I'm advocating for. What I'm advocating for is um people working less hours, like working ridiculous hours, like 18 hours when they don't need to, because we have the automation already in society to replace those labor hours. That's what I'm advocating for. I'm not advocating for nobody to work. If you actually look at a lot of socialist countries, there's almost 0% unemployment.
Yeah, because the government
I want,
forces them to work.
yeah,
Communism, this is the part. Yeah. When you force everybody to have a job, then yeah, you're going to have 0% unemployment. That doesn't
yeah.
mean everybody has a great job or that everybody's happy or that everybody's in the utopia you think communism is.
Well, give me examples of where give me examples of where socialism has improved the lives of people.
North Korea.
It's vastly improved it since it was ruled by imperialist Japan.
Which is better off right now, Japan or North Korea? Which is more modern?
Japan, but Japan relies on imperialism to
So,
maintain its economy. North Korea doesn't rely on the exploitation of the third world to support its economy.
no, it relies on Japan or on China.
Yeah, rely.
Just like
Yeah,
all the communist kids from the 60s relied on their parents because they thought that this is fucking retarded. Look, you cannot have a system where everybody is supposed to do as much as they can and then tell me, "Oh no, we're going to have automation." And I point out, "Well, that just means they're not going to have to work." And then go, "No, they're still going to have to work." What are they
yeah,
still going to do if automation is already doing everything for them?
well, that's the thing. That's where it gradually works up to. That's what works up to communism, as automation takes over more and more jobs, and the socialist country is stable when the world has become a socialist republic. Um, and there's no opposition to this. Uh, the state will wither away. It'll not be needed as it'll gradually not be needed as much, and automation will take over more jobs. And when we get to full communism, barely anyone will be working. And you might call it being lazy. In my opinion, it opens up people's lives to pursuing knowledge and art and leisure, and uh, pursuing things that are still productive, but they don't have to do this like tedious manual labor anymore. That's done by machines at that
What,
point.
one, okay, who takes care of the machines? And two, how do you make sure they're not wasting their time?
That's what I was getting to. I didn't say that nobody would be working. I would say there would still need to be some people running the machines, and there would still need to be people to run local councils,
Well, why do those people still have to work?
so that society can operate
Well, how do you choose who has to do that?
by
Is it a punishment?
democratically electing them.
You're going to elect people to fix machines.
No, not that. No, to the government, and then
Yeah, I'm not talking about the government. I'm
and
talking
then
about the machine part because I've worked on machines and they can be, it's a dirty, nasty job. Who has to
Mhm.
do that and how do you decide who has to do that?
Well, that depends what level of automation you're on. You might have machines fixing machines, and then it could get to the point where there's almost a minimal amount of labor you have to put in to actually get machines to
Yeah,
operate properly.
but people are still, at some point, you're still going to need people there.
Yeah, at some
At some
point,
point,
yeah.
you have this whole society that doesn't have to work because machines are doing everything. But you're still going to need some people who have to work on those machines. No
Yes.
matter how many machines you have fixed machines, eventually people are going to have to be involved.
Yeah.
And what about
Well,
designing the machines? How do you decide in this utopia of yours where everybody gets to sit on their fat asses all day, who still has to work?
well, as I was saying, um, people don't have to do. Barely anyone has to do manual labor in this society. Would they would pursue science and art instead, and they would still design the machines, and they would still get built. Depending on the level of automation at the time, machines might build machines by that point. I don't know, but uh, as uh, as socialism moves forwards, uh, less and less people have to do that labor because automation takes over almost everything.
Yeah, almost everything, but there's still some human involvement.
Yeah, that's just inevitable. But
And who
the
has to do
vast
that? How do you
majority,
decide who has to do that? Is it by people
well, the
volunteering? Is it, and if nobody volunteers, how do you do that? You have to have the government force people to do it.
there is no government in a communist society. There's workers' councils, but there's no central
A workers'
government.
council is still a government.
Yeah, it's a smaller.
It's still a fucking government. So don't pull that semantic shit with me. Who at some
It's
point you're going to have people that have to do this work, and if nobody's
well,
willing to do it, if
well,
nobody's
not a
willing to
government. Well,
calm
not a
down, let me
government.
say
Sorry,
it.
I meant a state. Sorry, I just wanted to put out. I meant a state. Sorry, there wouldn't be a state in this society, but
Right, but there would still be a
there would
government, and the
be
government would have to force people to work, and you're okay with that.
well, yeah. Well, that's what happens in today's society. People are forced to work or they starve. Work is a necessity of life for many
Yeah, but you're
people
talking.
just
Don't
now,
you're pointing
and
to? Hang on, you are trying to excuse the hole in your utopia by pointing to today. I have no problem with saying yes. Today, people have to work if they want to eat, and I kind of
mhm.
like that society because it forces people to do work and better themselves. In your society, there's nothing forcing anybody to better themselves. My question is, how do you decide who has to fix these machines? If nobody volunteers, the government is going to have to force people. What happens if the government picks somebody to work on a machine and they refuse?
Well, it's very unlikely that somebody will refuse out of thousands of people, millions, whatever scale it's on. There's
Well, you
bound to
have
be
a
some people that, and there's still a military of some sort. There's still a police that would get people to,
to work.
like
You're talking
yeah,
about police to make people work.
yeah, but that's not. But how's that any better from today's society where you're forced to work or you'll starve to death? There's not really a huge uh,
Because there's a motivation right now in work or you starve to death. In your society there, everybody else gets to lay around, do whatever they want.
No,
And now you have, what do you mean no?
no. People would pursue science and art. They wouldn't do nothing. There would still need
How
to
do you
be
make
people.
sure they do that?
There would still
So,
need people to be scientists. There would still need people to be teachers. There would still people needing to be architects, mathematicians, etc.
but
All
you wouldn't
the
need
manual,
everybody to do that.
not everyone, no.
So how do you decide who has to work? You still haven't answered that question. You have all of these people,
People go
half of
through
which
people
don't
go
have to
through
do anything.
people go through education, then the government, then the local council appoints them the job based on their skills.
And if they don't do it, then what happens?
Then, uh, well, they would probably be jailed or something.
Jailed for not working. So basically, poor
Yeah,
tax. Okay. And you're okay with that. That to you is a utopian society where you're forced to work or you go to jail.
yeah, but you're not forced to work like
What
for
do you mean you're not
jobs
forced
that
to
you
work? You
don't
just
like.
told me you were.
You're not forced to work. You're not forced to work for jobs that you're not wanting to do.
I, I just asked if somebody doesn't want to do it, what would happen?
Well, they would just join the other masses who would go back into education or something. They would go back into the system. Then somebody else would come forward and take their place.
See, but this is the whole problem with communism that I spoke about earlier. It depends on the best of humanity.
Mhm,
If everybody does their absolute best and everybody wants the system to work, then everybody will go out and do as much as they can to do it. That
mhm.
is not how humans work. Some humans are lazy. They
Yeah,
just are.
communism's about is kind of about social engineering. It's about changing the ways humans think, the way humans behave, and
You can't change.
the reason people act like this is not because of human nature. It's because a capitalist society encourages this behavior. It brings this behavior in a socialist society. When you change the environment, the way people think is different. For example, the
So you
nuclear
want to brainwash people.
wait. So no, not to brainwash people. It's social engineering. It's happened
That's
throughout.
brainwashing.
It's no, it's not. It's happened throughout history. Uh, for example, the nuclear family never always used to exist. Before that, you had communal. You had the community looked after children. Uh, the nuclear family was actually quite a recent invention by the capitalist system. It's they just change with the system that they're given. That's what happens. People change, and it's up to the people if they want to bring forth the society, they have to carry out violent revolution for this to happen. People need to want this. They're not doing it against their will. People
Okay.
are doing this because they
Where has
want
this
it.
communism has been tried in several places, socialism has been tried in several places. Where has it ever worked as you're describing?
Communism, the actual society, has never existed yet. It's never.
Okay. How about
It's not
socialism? Where's
social.
socialism? Socialism is the first step to communism, according to Marxist theory.
Yeah,
Where has socialism ever worked the way you're describing?
it worked in the Soviet Union up until
Oh my
Stalin
God.
died. It worked in Maoist China. It worked. It worked. It worked
No, no,
in
no, no.
anarchist
As you're
Catalonia.
describing, where
It
has it
worked
worked? Because
in.
you described this utopian society where everybody does as much as they can. We know in the Soviet Union they had the Gulag,
No, they
where
didn't. No, there's no evidence that there was gulags in the Soviet Union.
oh, for fuck's sake.
There is no evidence. There's no letters from Stalin saying to carry out genocides. There's nothing. The reason people were dying was because of famine caused by natural disasters and changes in the weather. There's
So when people were standing in line for toilet paper, was that a natural disaster or what caused that shortage?
What does that have to do with
Well, because
famine?
you're making it sound like the only thing that happened was there were some natural disasters, and the truth of the matter is, the Soviet Union fucking failed horribly. It couldn't feed its people
No,
because it was a shit system.
no, it wasn't. It was
Okay,
the reason things were shit was because is because
you just told
the
me that it was
no
that
no
it
no no
worked as your utopia did. That you can't
yeah
tell
yeah
me now that
well
things are shit.
I didn't say it was worked as a utopia. I said it was, and what I meant was it was an improvement over
That's but
Tsarist
that's not
Russia.
what I asked you.
Tsarist
I asked
Russia.
you. Wait.
Tsar,
No,
yeah
no,
yeah
no,
yeah
no, no. And
yeah.
hang on. If we're gonna have this discussion, it's got to be honest. I
Okay.
asked you where the hell this has worked as you're describing it in your utopian system,
Mm-hmm.
and one of your answers was the Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, socialism to an extent did work in the Soviet Union. It wasn't like a utopia, but it was a massive improvement over the Tsarist Russian system. The reason that there was a lot of they associate famine with Stalin in that is because it already existed under the Tsarist rule. There was countless famines before Stalin came to power. The reason the famine happened was Stalin was trying to uh, sell commercial crops to the international to like to other countries, so he can invest in industrializing Soviet farming. But then a series of natural disasters and because of bad weather, it triggered a famine. So they had sold a lot of that food off to like they had sold a lot of it off to these countries. So when the famine came about, they didn't have the foods to feed to people, but they didn't do nothing to try and fix it. They didn't. It wasn't a genocide or anything. There's Stalin. The year of the famine, he cut the amount of foods that they were exporting abroad. They were trying everything in their power to fix it, but the reason that it was very difficult to control is because of the the Tsarist system had not industrialized the country. There was no communication systems and transport. Like cars were a rarity in the Soviet Union at that time. They had the lack of
Okay,
resources to go and help
let's let
these
let's
communities.
say for argument's sake that you're absolutely right. Stalin did nothing wrong.
Yeah,
Why didn't things improve later?
they did things like
Less
dramatically
people
improved.
died, but it was still a shithole.
Yeah, well, not well. That after Stalin died, yeah, it was kind of a shithole because the USSR became reactionary, and it was it became sort of like state capitalist. The state took over a lot of the means of production. During Stalin's government, 70% of production was owned by the workers, and only 30% was controlled directly by the state. After he died, I believe a massive chunk of that was taken over by the state, and it essentially became a state capitalist system.
The USSR was a capitalist system.
A state capitalist system. A state capitalist system is where the state controls the means of production, and it regulates what it regulates everything. But in actual socialist society in the early Soviet Union, when things were collectively owned, that's what socialism looks like. That it's controlled by the workers.
Okay. I, if I would strongly recommend reading actual history books instead of whatever the fuck it is you're
This is
reading.
no,
'Cause
this is actual no, this is actual history. This is actual statistics from the Soviet Union. Even conservative historians have admitted that Stalin wasn't a brutal dictator.
who?
I haven't got their names up just a minute. Um, I'll send you them on Twitter, but there is, I have heard of conservative historians who have said Stalin wasn't this monster that the West tries to make out he was.
And I'm sorry. Going back to your state capitalism, what is it?
State capitalism, where capital is regulated by the state, where the means of production is run by the state.
Um, okay. And that's what you blame for the fall of the Soviet Union?
Yeah, well, I believe that they strayed away from what
Okay.
Stalin was building towards.
That still leads to the question of where has this worked, where everything is as fine as you say it would be, where people are doing their best and everybody, where has socialism or communism actually worked?
It's worked in instances in time, but
Instances in time,
but a reason that it's not continued on is a lot of these socialist countries have been crushed by external forces like the United States. The United States had well, they had a lot in to do with the collapse of many socialist countries. That it was.
but if socialism is so good, how could the United States do that?
Sorry,
wouldn't they be able to rise above? Or doesn't this show that capitalism is the better society? Because in your theory, the United States is responsible for all.
It's the more ruthless society. I would argue. I'm saying socialism is the system that serves human needs better than capitalism does.
So, socialism and communism have never worked.
Well, they have
except
worked
in instances in time, which it means nothing. Any statistical analysis requires more than an anomaly. Let's finish this back up with North Korea real quick.
Yeah.
Is North Korea communist, socialist, national or state capitalist, whatever it is? Well, what system do you see there?
Probably closer to state capitalist, because the means of production, I believe, over there is mostly run by the state. It's not collectively owned by the workers.
So why do you support them having nukes if you don't even agree with their?
Because I believe that the United States is an even greater threat to the stability of the country than the actual government.
How many times has the United States attacked North Korea in the last 50 years?
Well, not since the Korean War, but the reason for that is because North Korea, the cost of a war like that would have been too great. When the Soviet Union was still there, that could have led to World War III if they started shit in Korea. But when the Soviet Union collapsed, the North Korea didn't have that security anymore, so they had to defend for themselves. So they had to develop these nuclear weapons, and so far it seems to be working. It's preventing the United States from trying to take over the country or trying to start some sort of military intervention in the country.
What would the U.S. gain from invading North Korea?
They would be. They would probably be. They'd probably. They would. Well, they would do it. Sorry, I'm losing track of what I'm saying.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah. No. They would have. Like against China, that would give them more military. Like that would give them more military influence in more military influence in Asia, and I'm not sure about what Korea has in terms of natural resources. There might be some motive behind that, and also North Korea, while a small threat, it's still a threat to the United States, and it'll still want to extinguish that. So that might be a reason as well.
The majority of sanctions that have come against North Korea in the last 20 years have all been because of their weapons programs. Wouldn't it make more sense to not do that?
Well,
To stay away from the weapons programs?
if they didn't do that, they wouldn't have that. They wouldn't have that security against invasion from the United States.
So you believe that if it wasn't for nukes, North Korea, we would have already invaded them?
Yes, I think at some point it would get invaded. Yes.
But you have no idea why we would do that.
No, I have an idea of why you would do it. You would do it to get rid of a threat, and you would do it to gain more influence in Asia. And I don't know about I'm not an expert on the natural resources of North Korea, but there might be something to gain from taking over Korea. And also like there might be some economic opportunities by taking over North Korea
that aren't found in South Korea.
Yeah, that's because they've already had an established economy. It might be in the short term, it might be detrimental, but you don't know in the long term. The United States taking over North Korea could be very advantageous. Like they might build a tourism industry. I don't know. They might build. I don't know what the natural resources are in North Korea. There might be some sort of opportunity there.
Okay. Just piece of advice. If you're going to argue that the United States is going to take them over, you might want to have a good reason, because right now there's literally no reason for us to do it. The only reason to even fuck with North Korea is because they keep launching missiles.
Yeah. What about Syria? What's there to gain from Syria? Like, if they seem to be pretty hostile towards Syria, what's there to gain from that? It seems like a pretty huge risk just now to try and start shit in Syria, but the United States seems to be determined to still start shit there.
Oh, with Syria, there was already an active conflict going on, and yeah, we stuck our nose in there, and I don't think we actually should have there.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. There's nothing to gain. There's nothing to gain from invading Syria, but they did it. They're doing it anyway. So why wouldn't they do it for North Korea? They would have to do it. They might want to do it to secure security for their allies.
If you go back to when we got into Syria, you have to remember we had the Arab Spring going on, and the popular opinion within Washington was that a takeover of horrible governments, which al-Sharad's government is fucking horrible, knocking them out and letting their people take over was a good thing. We saw it in Egypt. We saw it in Libya. We saw this happen. So it's not about invading. None of our actions over there have been about invading, except for Iraq and Afghanistan. And if you want to look at those and you want to say, well, why would we do that with Afghanistan? They had it was a terrorist camp when we started. And with Iraq, at the very least, you can always say there's oil there. So there's actually things you can point to in those areas for why those actions are happening. There is literally no reason for us to invade North Korea. If North Korea would stop being fucking dickheads, if they would put down their guns and maybe, take some of that communism they talk about and actually work with it, they could be fine. Nobody would even give a shit about them. Every time they start to get ignored, they start rattling their saber. That's what gets them attention. That's why there's any threat to them. It's because they're being threatening. You make it sound like we're over there pumping our chest. They're the ones who keep doing this shit. They're the ones who keep firing missiles that could hit Japan.
Yeah, well, they don't exactly have a lot of room in their own country to carry out nuclear weapons tests. They have to do it probably in the ocean because they have no other place to do it.
But they're not firing nukes. They're firing missiles to see how far they can get them.
Well, missiles, yeah. that I wouldn't. I don't think they can really. I don't think they have the space, and I think it would be pretty dangerous to launch missiles within their own land.
Or how about not launch those missiles? How much do those missiles cost?
I don't know, probably a fair amount, but as I said, I think it's important to their security.
Their security is not threatened except for by them doing that. When
Well,
has the United States ever said anything about North Korea, say in the last 50 years, without Korea doing something first?
it's they would probably find something to they would probably they probably find something to complain about North Korea for. They would probably try and undermine it. They would try and do something to the country. They I think they would still try and they even the fact that they're a socialist country is not in the interests of the United States. They wherever countries have shown like even slight sympathies to socialism, they've crushed it. Chile, they elected a socialist, democratically elected a socialist government. They overthrew it, and it wasn't posing any threat to the United States. But they did it anyway. Uh, they've done this to other
Did we invade
countries.
them?
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, I believe. You invade that, or they indirectly invaded. They funded uh, some sort of coup in the country, I believe, to overthrow the socialist president there. The United States has always tried to overthrow socialist governments throughout history, ones that haven't even been interested in showing any
So
aggression towards them.
okay,
They
okay.
just did it for the fact that they were socialist. They did it.
With
They
Chile, we it was a military overthrow, but we didn't invade the country. So what you're talking about with North Korea here, let's say worst case scenario, we send in some people to take out the Kim family, who you don't like anyway.
Mhm.
Um, why, if all you're interested in is keeping the country, if the country was to stay there and we just took out the Kim family, would you be okay with that?
I have no issues really if they got rid of the Kim dynasty. What, as I said earlier, what I would hope is some sort of socialist. There would be some sort of more truer to Marxist socialist uprising would happen in the country. Because they've like even in
Well,
North
what
Korea.
I'm getting at here, what I'm getting at here is the by your own discussion here,
Yeah.
using Chile as an example, what you're talking about with them having nukes is just to maintain the Kim family.
Hmm.
It's not for the country itself.
Well, it is partly to maintain the Kim dynasty, but uh, what I would hope
It's
for is
entirely
what I would
entirely.
hope for is that another socialist government would take over, and they would still use those nukes, and they would still maintain those nukes to as a deterrent from United States aggression.
The aggression that hasn't happened. The war ended in
It could happen.
1953. It has
Hmm.
been 64 years and we haven't
Yeah,
invaded.
but you don't know if the country since then. No, the country's never shown weakness. It's never it's tried in every
We could have.
possible way to not show vulnerability. If they show vulnerability, they don't know the United States might try and start some
Okay,
sort of
let's
military intervention.
let's be honest here. Right now, we could
Hmm.
go in and take over this country in a week. We could hit their nuclear sites, make sure they cannot even fire them before they even knew we were there. We could literally take over the whole place with no issue at all.
Could you? Would they
You're
be
talking
able?
about,
Would they be
go
able
ahead.
to get? Sorry, would they be able to get the the nuclear launch sites on time before they hit Seoul? Because it's
We could hit
late.
their nuke sites before they even launch them. Yes. We live in a day and age where we can see everything from the sky. And if you don't
Yeah.
think we know where their nukes are, you're just wrong.
Even if the nukes fail, they're not going to stop there. They'll send their militaries. They've got underground tunnels that can lead right into Seoul. They would still invade the country. They wouldn't stop at that. That when if the United States tries to take over the North's going to throw everything it can at the South. It's not going to, even if they sabotage their nuclear weapons, they would still use conventional methods to cause shit. They would still probably wipe out cities in the North. I meant the South. Sorry, they would still wipe out cities in the South. They would, they would decimate that.
Do you
that
have
would
any
be
understanding of how big the United States military is?
Yeah, North Korea has a massive military in comparison to its population and the size
Well,
of the
that's what they
country.
said about Iraq too, and it took us 2 days to get to take out everything.
North Korea has over, I believe it's 1.5 million troops active just now,
troops
and they
can't do
have and they
much.
have and they have 10. They have another 10 million on stand. Like people registered for service. They're really more than prepared to start. Sabotage their allies.
Their 2 million troops running at our planes, bombing them from the sky would probably kick our ass. But we're getting close to the top of the hour, and I didn't want to make this. I didn't want this to go more than like an hour. Was there anything you wanted to bring up that we haven't talked about yet?
No, I think you've brought up some. I think you've brought up some good points. I mean, I still disagree. I believe it's maybe the North Korean government should stop now, but I still believe that their nuclear deterrent and their military is necessary to deter their country. They have to do whatever they can to deter the United States. But yeah, I think you've brought up some good points. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll leave it on that then. Guys, thank you guys so much for coming and watch. Communists in Space, thank you so much for joining me for the talk. And guys, we'll see you later.